Alright, match 5. So we'll do some post-match analysis. Obviously, designate Obosh. Hand seems pretty decent. We were leading on caves because, with 7 more tap lands in the deck, just, we don't know if this is one of those matchups where we gotta land Blood Moon on curve. So, yeah, and it turns out that, this isn't exactly a matchup we need Blood Moon on curve, but hey. Alright, so we can lead on Stomp. If they have Force Negation, we've got Flame Slash as a backup. Thankfully, they don't have that. So, we're in a pretty good spot. We can remove that. We can hit for 4. So, we might as well just play the Blood Moon, and I will play the Temple untapped. And, of course, they do actually deal with this with Esper Charm, but we're still hitting for 4, so we're still pretty decent shape. And we choose not to crack Relic. We'll just keep hitting in. And of course they can counter that, but they do have to deal with our Soul Scars or they're going to be in trouble. So they're going to play the Batter Skull, but this could be their unmaking. Now, in retrospect, I probably should have flashbacked Relic at end of turn. And, but thankfully I didn't need to because I can just play Flame Slash, Firebolt them. Thankfully I didn't have Force Negation. Yep, pretty easy match. Yeah, let's see how the next one goes. All right, match 2. Let's first see how the sideboard goes. Of course, actually, first we're gonna see the sideboard action when we see Obosh. So what we did here is we took out the Soulscar Mages for Pillages, and I think that was it. And we took out the relics for let me take out the relics for again. Oh yeah, the familiars. So here's the reasoning. Actually, more like we took the Soul Scars out for the familiars and we took out the relics for the pillages. Relics for pillages makes sense. This looks like a Stoneblade deck, so probably they're heavier on the artifacts and the graveyard cards as their incidental value. So pillage it is. And I think familiar is better than Soul Scar. Soul Scar can be better against Batter Skull under some circumstances, but a lot of times it just eats a removal spell and then dies. And again, generally like Swiftspear better because it can crash in for some damage and at least get some value before dying. Anyway, we'll see how this one goes, but fairly confident in that choice. And here we have familiar. So we play this Seasoned Pyromancer, so we can't shut that back. And so I recall actually this game there was I opted to play this a very specific way, and I actually learned this this trick for how to play this way back in the Uro meta, because I think Blood Moon is, yeah, well, anyway, we'll see, but Blood Moon is going to be fairly lights out soon. Okay, but so what just happened right there? So I had a choice, actually. I could have played Stomp or Lightning Bolt. I elected to do Lightning Bolt back there because if they had Force Negation, that could have just been game over for me. So I liked having another mana open for Lightning Bolt. Plus, if I play another Stoneforge, I can bolt it in a turn and then drop Blood Moon on my turn. So, on first glance, Stomp seems to have like more utility, but on second glance, Lightning Bolt actually offers a lot more, both playing around Force Negation and playing around a second Stoneforge Mystic. Of course, they don't. Now, here's where I like to play a little interesting. So here, I have some options, and people who say like this deck doesn't have options, well, here we go. This is exactly where how you play the deck does come into place. Like, I mean, honestly, it's a little bit besides me that some people. I mean, obviously there's assumptions. If you never play the deck, you don't really know. But like, yeah, people who think there's no decisions in this deck, they really haven't played it. Because like right here, I mean, look, we could play Blood Moon, we could play Familiar, we could play Seasoned Pyromancer, we could play Pillage. We've got literally, we could play the Giant, but I think realistically, we've got 4 very strong plays, and honestly, there's a very good case to be made for any one of these. Familiar, the case for Familiar is that, we can get on board, and, we can wait, and that allows us to wait on the Seasoned Pyromancer till later so we can sculpt better cards. Actually, maybe I'll get to Familiar in a second. The argument, obviously, for Blood Moon is to just immediately turn them off, turn off further fetch lands, just maximize the potential impact of Blood Moon. The argument for Familiar is basically that, you know, they might be holding up a Celestial Purge, and that's actually something I learned from the Euro meta, is that a lot of times they're bringing in like 3, maybe 4 copies of Celestial Purge. They seem to be really high on those these days. They could also just have good old-fashioned mana leak, but either way, given that they have no black this game, and we know they're an Esper deck, and yeah, Blood Moon is probably pretty much lights out. So, you know, what I learned in the old Euro meta is you just don't play your I win card in the form of Blood Moon right into counter magic. You know, like you have to kind of get a sense of when they have it, and they've clearly got some kind of answer to Blood Moon here. Either they've got a Celestial Purge, or they've got a mana leak, or they've got something. So the argument to playing Familiar would be, you know, just to stick something and, you know, like hopefully run them out of counter spells or Celestial Purges or whatever, so that you stick Blood Moon. The argument for Seasoned Pyromancer is similar to Filigree Familiar, but you put more bodies on board and you deal more damage at the cost of, you know, having a little less options on what exactly to pitch. And then there's the argument for Pillage, and the argument for Pillage is that they need to have exactly a counterspell to really make this a bad play. There's also the possibility that they might be mana screwed and they might not have like a 4th land period, and that could set them up to a devastating Blood Moon next turn if they happen to tap out, or if they don't have a removal for Blood Moon or counter magic or whatever. So if I remember correctly, I end up, of these 4 very valid choices, opting for Pillage. Yeah. And the reason why I did this is because look, my reasoning was this. Look, if they have a mana leak, I think Pillage is actually the card I'd most want them to mana leak. Filigree Familiar and Seasoned Pyromancer are a lot of value in a matchup where every time you can go up on the opponent for 1 card, it's huge. Blood Moon, even if they have like a basic land or 2 in play, like if it shuts them off of Cryptic or multiple color sources, it's still most likely going to be doing so much work that you're very heavily favored to win the game. So out of all 4 cards, Pillage is the one that my reasoning was the least damaging if they happen to mana leak. It was also the card most likely to dodge some type of interaction they could play, so most likely it blanked any type of play they had. And I guess, you know, I could have gone over more of the reason. I could have gone over these reasons for Pillage more, but like I wanted, maybe I guess, save them for when I actually explain my choice. But yeah, also, like, you know, they pretty much had to have counter magic. If they had Celestial Purge or Path or you know, or anyway, any number of any other different removal, basically they wouldn't have any play. So yeah, so I ended up playing Pillage. Also, there was some upside to, you know, maybe they're mana screwed in the abstract, and as it turns out, it does look like they're mana screwed in the abstract. And so that with 7 cards in hand, they're actually really constricted here. So here are the choice. I have got choices again. This time it's between basically Familiar, Blood Moon, and Seasoned Pyromancer. They didn't play anything on their turn. I'm still fairly confident they've got something that can deal with Blood Moon, and considering that Blood Moon is basically lights out right now, I decided to go to Seasoned Pyromancer. And the reasoning is basically it will put the most pressure on them, and it'll maximize the chance that I draw another land, and I can continue curving out into Obosh and into other cards. Filigree Familiar would have been fine, but I really want to try to win the game as soon as possible before they can recover, because you know, obviously if they recover, yeah, I mean, like, basically they're down. I want to try to capitalize, and I felt like Seasoned Pyromancer was the best way to try to capitalize. There's some you know, some consideration of Familiar because it dodges Aether Gust, but I still stick with my guns, and I still decide to try to put a lot of pressure on the board with Seasoned Pyromancer, which I do. I just the Lightning Bolt and the Filigree Familiar. The reasoning is that I need to have at least 1 bird spell in hand in case they drop another Stoneforge, and Bonecrusher is obviously the most value that I can get from that. And Filigree Familiar is a little like tough to ditch, but I do get a token for it anyway, and so, you know, I think that's justifiable. So anyway, and my intention is to cycle Forgotten Cave in a turn. They end up Esper charming 2 cards out of my hand, which is a little disappointing, but I think here the choice is obviously Familiar and Bonecrusher, because, again, with 1 swamp, cutting off 2 of their 3 colors seems like basically lights out. So I want to keep this in hand. And I'll cycle Forgotten Cave, just because, that's mana efficient, and, hey, I draw another giant anyway. Yeah. So I play the Fountain first, and the reason is because I may want to stomp a Stoneforge in combat. I mean, a Snapcaster. And I don't want, well, I don't know, actually. Maybe I didn't actually need to play that out, but anyway. So I'm still sticking by my guns, and I'm still being patient with the Blood Moon. And I'm going to play the Bonecrusher. Now, sure, this makes us vulnerable to Supreme Verdict, but if they play Supreme Verdict, there's a very good chance I can resolve the Blood Moon. So, hey, if they've got Force of Negation as well, sometimes them bad beats. And there's a Soul Purge we knew about the whole time. We knew they had it. We just had a feeling. So, yeah, they did away with the Stoneforge, but but now they're in a situation where they're going to hit. The Seasoned Pyromancer. But now they're in a situation where they're going to take 2 hits, and they've got an exactly turn 2 clock. 2 turns clock with this. So they seem to think about what to do, and you see, the thing is, it's like we're in a situation where I'm 99% sure they know we've got Blood Moon, and we know they've got an answer to Blood Moon. And this is something I kind of picked up in the Earl meta, and how I kind of boosted my win rate, even when they started catching on, that they basically had to keep mana open for Blood Moon, is I realized if they know we've got Blood Moon, and we know they've got an answer to Blood Moon, a lot of times we can just play out our creatures, and a lot of times, it kind of messes with their sequencing, because if they deal with our creatures, then we just drop Blood Moon and then we win, if they run themselves out of counter magic or removal spells. But at the same time, if they don't deal with the creatures, then the creatures will just get them, and aside from the Blood Moon. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that always works, but here in this game, I just kind of had a feeling that this is how I wanted to approach it. And I'm sticking with my guns once again, and I'm playing Pillage instead of Blood Moon, because I have a feeling they got an answer for it, and I also think keeping them on 2 mana, it's going to be pretty powerful anyway. They just concede. So we don't get to see if they had an answer to Blood Moon. My suspicion is that they may have a counter to this, but then, I don't know. I would have liked to play it out a little more. I'm 99% sure that they know we've got a Blood Moon, and they know that the way we're sequencing, they're in a situation where they're either going to die next turn, or a Blood Moon's just going to shut them out. That's what I think. Obviously, they don't know for sure we have a Blood Moon, but I think they know. They know we got a Blood Moon somehow. Just the same way we kind of knew they had an answer to Blood Moon. So, yeah. I apologize if the rest of this week, if the rest of this league was a little low energy, but if nothing else, I might actually still keep this. I keep probably like 75% or more of my recordings, but sometimes when they come out kind of not so great, I end up scrapping them. But I actually thought about scrapping this one because I was kind of low energy in the first few, or maybe even in games 1 through 4. But I don't know. Kind of taking just one game out of a league seems a little bit kind of dubious. And I really do think that there is maybe a lot that my viewers can learn from this matchup. So if nothing else, if you're seeing this, it's probably because more than anything, I felt like this game, which is unfortunate that I didn't have live commentary. But to be honest, actually, I think it's better that I'm doing post-match commentary, because I think I've actually I have a little more energy, and a little more. I think I'm better able to explain my thought process actually after the game rather than during the game for this particular matchup. And so far I'm liking the way let me know if it's not, if your perception isn't quite the same as mine, but I feel like the commentary has come up pretty good, or at least pretty good by my standards. Not that I'm the best commentator at this of all time or anything, or even that great in the abstract. I don't know. Obviously, you have to get feedback from others to really know. You can't really self-assessment only takes you so far. But yeah, my hope is that this game can help anybody who's interested in playing this deck kind of see how I approach the control matchup. And I think this is particularly important because I really think my opponent actually understands this matchup, which is not actually very normal for control opponents. In my opinion, you do win some number of games because the opponent is not playing optimally. They're not familiar with the matchup. This opponent probably has played Obosh Prowess before. Hats off to Sir Sean Nathan. You know, I think the opponent probably did play as good as they could. They obviously got it kind of mana screwed. So like, you know, obviously we're not playing against an opponent that's drawing optimally. But I think they were probably playing optimally basically at all times. I think it's pretty clear the opponent knew what's up. They knew how to play. But I think we were also, you know, we were also playing pretty well. I think we were minimizing the misplays as much as possible. Obviously, let me know if I miss anything. But I think we were playing pretty optimally too. And I do think that this kind of shows the inherent strength of this deck a lot of times against control decks. If we're playing optimally and they're playing optimally, I think we still are favored because, and that's not usually, a lot of times actually against control decks, if both players are playing optimally, a lot of times the control deck is favored. You know, kind of like a lot of times like reactive boxers kind of have an advantage if both opponents really kind of understand the matchup, so to speak. At least that's my understanding. I'm by no means like a huge, you know, not, I don't have a huge wellspring of knowledge in boxing, but that's what I heard. But in any case, yeah, like here, unlike what you'd expect, I do think we kind of have the advantage if both players know what's up, and the main reason why is because of the powerful threat of Blood Moon, particularly in a control shell that does not either only play 2 colors like blue-white or play red as one of its colors like Jeskai. But even against those decks, man, I'm telling you, do not assume that Blood Moon doesn't do anything. Simply turning off Cryptic and Archmage's Charm is huge. That alone is probably worth it to keep it in. And yeah, so like a lot of times the threat of Blood Moon is just pretty strong. And yeah, anyway, I think I've rambled on enough, but I do recommend kind of thinking through, you know, like realistically, you have a card where it's like, man, if I land this, I win the game. You know, you know, I think it's kind of good to try to like play that pretty conservatively. Yeah, don't just play that into something that, you know, could like just derail that winning the game. And in this matchup, at least in this game, I assessed that Blood Moon was basically going to win the game. I think the opponent did too, and I think we got rewarded for making the right assessment. And once we did, I don't think there's that much the opponent could have done. I think the opponent did the best they could, given that we made that assessment. But I think once we made that assessment, and once we were able to make the correct plays to execute that assessment properly, I think the game was kind of outside of the opponent's control, especially considering the relatively poor top decks they had. So anyway, that was that's hopefully this is insightful. For what it's worth, this is kind of how I approached the Uro meta game back when that was a thing. And hey, I mean, I still did pretty well against Uro decks back then, even though they were insanely powerful when you think about it. Blood Moon definitely was a basically good game against them. Anyway, until next time, and post-league wrap-up 3-2. I'm fairly happy. At least we brought it back to a positive win, you know, a positive record. All right.